you about NAGPRA, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her project to start with. She is doing a project on Maria Pearson, who was very instrumental in the development of the Iowa Burial Code prior to NAGPRA being a national organization. And so we were hoping you could share a little bit of information about that and what that looked like as a result of Maria's work, or if you could share some other people who were instrumental in that. She has a list of questions for you. And so we're going to go, and then if you also have suggestions on where we might look for some things, we've kind of tapped out everything that we have here on Maria Pearson. She's done some pretty good digging, but you might have some suggestions as well. So I'm going to put you on speakerphone, and then she has some questions for you. Okay, thank you. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. Okay, go ahead, Anna.
Okay. So how did NAGPRA begin?
Kind of a difficult topic. I think that, as you say, much of what happened and what resulted in NAGPRA was something that Maria Pearson's or running moccasins identified in Iowa. But throughout 1960s and 1970s, Indian tribes were really concerned that American Indian human remains were treated so much differently than European and non-Indian remains. So it kind of, when Maria, her husband worked for the Iowa Department of Transportation, when he came home with information about a cemetery that had been impacted and I think 27 European people were reburied rather quickly, and a woman and a child who were identified as Native American based on some peats and materials found in the graves. When those people were sent to the office of the Iowa archaeologist for the Iowa Historic Preservation, that really upset Maria about why her ancestral or American Indian remains were treated so differently than others who were in similar situations. That was coming along at a time when this sorts of information was really under examination. With the American Indian movement activities in late 1960s, early 1970s, a lot of attention was drawn to the way that American Indians' human remains were treated as scientific objects, and that the people weren't really treated like people, but were treated like items for scientists to examine and measure and prod and such. So, the social unrest of the 1960s led to the American Indian movement, which led to the protests about the way American Indian human remains were treated as opposed to non-Indian remains. So that's kind of a long way around your question there, and I hope you got some of the answer that you need.
Yep, for sure. So who are some other important leaders in the movement?
Well, there were a lot of people who kind of became involved. With Maria Pearson, Dwayne, I think it's Dwayne Anderson, was in the Iowa, I think it was the Iowa state archaeologist. He was also involved with Maria and looking at the trying to and actually worked with her to take her concerns about human remains and American Indian remains. He took information to heart. And so he worked with her to get the Iowa burials law passed and to get the human remains reburied. Also, politicians include Daniel Inouye, Inoue. I think that's how he spells it. There may be an extra vowel in this somewhere. But he was from Hawaii, and he was really involved in helping push the NAGPRA regulations through Congress. Also, Morris Udall from New Mexico, or Arizona, I think one of those two states, was very interested in pushing the idea of repatriation forward as well. So those were probably a couple of politicians. In terms of American Indians, Suzanne Shown Harjo and Vine Deloria, of course, were pretty outspoken about the necessity to repatriate human remains. A good source to look at is Dr. Timothy McEwen. His last name is spelled capital M, lowercase c, capital Keown. He has a book called In a Smaller Scope of Conscious, and then that talks about NAGPRA and the history of repatriation.
Okay.
So that would be a good source to. It's available, I think, as an e-reader or maybe as a library. I used to have a copy, but it has disappeared somewhere, or I would send it to you for your use. But it does provide a good history of the repatriation movement in the United States.
Okay, thank you. How does NAGPRA work with other individuals and companies?
Well, NAGPRA is a federal law that deals with trying to return 4 specific classes of artifacts to federally recognized Indian tribes from museums that receive federal funding and also from federal agencies. So as the law, it requires museums and federal agencies to get a list of all the human remains in their collections, to provide listing of funerary objects. Those are things that were associated with the human remains at the time of interment. Objects of cultural patrimony, which are objects like the Constitution that belong to the entire tribe and not to any one specific individual. And then sacred objects, which have a very special definition, but basically it's objects that are needed by present-day adherents of a tribal religion in order to keep practicing their religion. So in that regard, NAGPRA as a law really requires museums and federal agencies to report back on their interactions with federally recognized tribes. Private institutions that do not receive $1 of federal funds are not required to comply with NAGPRA. And as well, the Smithsonian Institution has a separate law that deals with their attempts to repatriate human remains and those special classes of objects. So the Smithsonian is not covered under NAGPRA.
Okay. What is the political impact of NAGPRA?
The political impact of NAGPRA has been to force federal agencies and museums to recognize that they need to be dealing with contemporary and living people rather than just accepting the idea that human remains and objects in museums don't have meanings to contemporary Indians. It's also tribes a stronger voice in impacting the way that archaeology, cultural anthropology, museum studies, and other programs have dealt with tribes and tribal people in the past, and it's also given tribes a voice in really helping influence the way research is carried out in the United States. Now, that's been one of the primary, or probably the more appropriate political impact of NAGPRA on contemporary populations.
Okay, so this next one you might not have an answer for, but I'm just going to ask it anyways. What do you think the social impact of NAGPRA is?
Social impact has been that it's provided tribes with, in some ways, an idea of healing, like a healing ceremony, in that many tribal members during the legislation, the attempt to pass the legislation, talked about how they felt that it was important for them to return their ancestors to the earth to help them complete their spiritual journey. It provided tribes with a way of establishing relationships with museums which had basically ignored them in the past. It also provided tribes with a way of increasing conversations with each other about materials and items of shared information. It gave them information about materials that had been perhaps taken from the tribe or from tribal members 100 years ago, and it gave the tribes the opportunity to reintroduce those into their contemporary social life, especially in terms of sacred objects such as, say, medicine bundles or things that have been protected by individuals for the health of the tribe. It allowed tribes to get those returned to them and reintroduce them into their social ceremonies and social structure. So in that regard, I think NAGPRA actually strengthened tribal society by allowing them to regain control of materials that had been lost to the tribes 100 or 200 years ago.
Okay, and this is my last question.
Sure.
What do you think the economic impact is?
Oh, very difficult to
Yeah.
discuss economic impact. I think that I know that many tribes have been able to get grants from the National NAGPRA program to come to museums and look at items and material in order to reclaim them. It's also given tribes the opportunity to come pick up material, take it home, and rebury it. But when you're looking at the large number of tribes that have been involved in repatriation, I don't think it has had a major economic impact. There is one thing, sorry, what I will try to do is there's a report by the United States Government Accountability Office. I don't know if you've seen it. It was published in 2010. I have a PDF that I can send you if you want.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, it's called the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. After almost 20 years, key federal agencies still have not fully complied with the act. So I will, if I can get that downloaded, what I will do is I will send this along to you just as soon as we hang up. It might provide you some additional information. I don't know if it will provide you answers or more questions. I think it will give you some background material on just on general information about NAGPRA and some of its history as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're more than welcome. I'm always glad to help however I can, although sometimes I feel like I'm just sort of talking around in circles. But
yeah, you helped a lot today, clear up some things.
Okay, let's see if I can. I'm trying to find the email. Maybe I don't know what happened to it. Hold on a second. No, I can't find the email that I had. Excuse me again. My brain doesn't work that well when I'm trying to do about 5 things at once. But let's see. No,
Can you search your emails?
yeah, I'm trying to find. Yeah, if you can just give me a good email address. I know I have it, but I think I may have moved it to a folder that I haven't been able to pull up immediately.
Okay.
Let's see, Deborah, is that zmasker@cbdsd.org?
Yeah, CBCSD.
Okay. What I will do is, as I say, as soon as I get off the call, I will attach this PDF and send it.
Okay.
Okay, so what else can I try to help you with?
That's all the questions I had. So really not much. I just needed to know more about NAGPRA, which is, you did teach me more about NAGPRA, so because I didn't know as very much about it.
Okay, well, as I say, I'm hoping that excuse me, that this article will give you some background on it.
Okay.
And also, I did look a little bit at, I hate to use Wikipedia, but I looked at a Wikipedia article on Maria Pearson, and that it provides some good references that you can look at. I think they're available through the Iowa State Office of Archaeology, but having met Maria a couple of times and having known Dwayne Anderson and heard him discuss his relationship with Maria, what I've seen in the Wikipedia article is true. It's a true background.
Okay.
And like I say, I hate Wikipedia because they can be written and developed by just about anyone, but it does have some good references that you can use to give you some more specific background on her and her involvement with the Iowa burials law.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. And so, let's see. If I send this to Deborah, she'll be able to get this article to you, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, I am. So actually, I think I am sending it right now.
Okay.
So it should be coming in a little bit. It's 100 pages. I don't know if you can print it out or if you can just read it online or however you want to do that. I'm fortunate that it's 106 pages.
That's fine. Okay.
Okay, well, again, if there's anything more I can do to help, just let me know, and you can either email me and I'll try to get back with you with some written text, or we can set up another call before your project is due. How does that work?
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much, Anna, and I really wish you the best of luck on this.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. And thanks, Deborah, for getting us together.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I'm going to stop broadcast. Did he help?